The old world is dying. The separate ego is being transcended. Everything we know is being transformed. But this is a natural, good, and necessary next step for us as a conscious species. My work as a depth psychologist is complete. I have shared what I saw and predicted, and now the map, drawn by Jung, is in your hands. Each of you must decide what to do with this information. Ignore it, or pay attention to your dreams, synchronicities, and begin to consciously participate in this transformation. And on this journey, you are not alone. Thousands, perhaps millions of people around the world are awakening simultaneously. You are cells in the body of a new humanity, the anthropos, that is being born. And when this process reaches its critical point, the feeling of connection will become a direct, undeniable experience for everyone. Now, let me reveal to you what has been guarded for centuries in the most inaccessible monasteries of Ethiopia. I, Carl Gustav Jung, have dedicated decades to studying the collective unconscious and have always encountered symbols and archetypes whose origin was older than conscious memory. The answer came when I discovered the existence of the Ethiopian Bible, not just a translation, but a portal to primordial, mystical Christianity, the source from which the first believers drank before church councils decided which truths were acceptable and which should be buried. The Ethiopian Bible contains up to 88 books, compared to 66 in the Protestant Bible. Where did these texts go? What do they contain? And why were they hidden? Today, I will reveal to you 7 of its most closely guarded secrets. Secret 1. The Book of Enoch and the Heavenly Rebellion. The first and most startling secret is the full inclusion of the Book of Enoch. This text, removed from the Western canon, contains one of the most disturbing and psychologically revealing stories in all religious literature, the full account of the fall of the angels. While Western Bibles give only a few cryptic lines in Genesis, the Book of Enoch tells the whole story in detail. Angels, known as the Watchers, led by Semyaza and Azazel, swore an oath to descend upon Mount Hermon and take human women as wives. But this was not merely a carnal temptation. They brought forbidden knowledge to humanity. Azazel taught men to make swords, shields, and armor, thus beginning the age of warfare. Other angels taught witchcraft, astrology, and the art of deception. From a psychological perspective, these fallen angels are archetypes of ambiguous knowledge, wisdom that can elevate or destroy depending on how it is used. They represent a crucial moment in the evolution of consciousness, when humanity acquired technological and magical knowledge without the spiritual maturity to handle it. Think of our modern era. We have the power to split the atom, manipulate the genetic code, and create artificial intelligence, yet we lack the wisdom. The offspring of these unions were the Nephilim, giants whose insatiable appetite led them to devour humanity, and even themselves, an archetypal image of boundless desire and hubris leading to self-destruction. But the most disturbing part is the fate of the Nephilim. According to the Book of Enoch, the spirits of the slain giants did not ascend or descend. They remained on earth as demons, evil spirits that torment humanity to this day. This is the explanation for the origin of evil in the world. These earthly demons are the perfect projection of what I call humanity's collective shadow. All those destructive impulses, dark desires, and self-destructive tendencies inherited from our own history of violence. The Western Church removed this book because its complex and dark cosmology challenged systematic theology, presenting a universe where the boundaries between the divine and the demonic, sacred and forbidden knowledge were far more porous than orthodoxy wanted to admit. Secret 2. The Book of Jubilees and Sacred Time. The second preserved text is the Book of Jubilees, or the Little Genesis. This is not just a retelling of history from creation to the Exodus. It is the revelation of a system of sacred chronology, deliberately suppressed by the Western Church. The Book of Jubilees divides all of history into periods of 49 years. Jubilees, each composed of 7, weeks of years. From a Jungian viewpoint, this is a temporal mandala, a symbolic structure that organizes the chaos of history into archetypal patterns. The number 7, recurring constantly in this system, is the number of completeness and totality. But the most provocative aspect of this book is its insistence on a 364-day solar calendar, said to have been given by God to Adam. This means that both Judaism and Western Christianity have been celebrating sacred feasts on the wrong days for nearly 2,000 years, following a profane calendar imposed by Babylon and Rome. Psychologically, the Book of Jubilees speaks of the crucial distinction between chronological time, chronos, and sacred time, kairos. We, in the modern world, have completely lost the concept of sacred time, cyclical, mythical time in which spiritual transformations occur. Rituals and feasts are not just commemorations. They are gates into this eternal, mythical time. Secret 3. The Ascension of Isaiah and the 7 Heavens. The third secret is the Ascension of Isaiah, an apocalyptic text preserved in its entirety only in Ethiopia. In his visionary journey, the prophet passes through 7 heavens, each more glorious than the last. In the 6th heaven, he sees an angel sitting at the right hand of God, worshipped by all the heavenly hosts. His guide explains, "This is the Lord Christ, who will descend into the world in the last time." Isaiah then witnesses the celestial planning of the Incarnation, how the pre-existent Christ would descend through each of the 7 heavenly spheres, taking the form of the angels of each level to remain unrecognized by the archons, ruling those spheres. This docetic idea of a disguised descent was deemed heretical in the West. However, from a psychological viewpoint, the 7 heavens are a cartography of the collective unconscious. Each level represents a layer of the psyche. Christ's descent is an archetypal image of the individuation process in reverse. The movement of the self toward the consciousness of the ego, the incarnation of the divine into the human. Secret 4. The Kebra Nagast and the true Ark of the Covenant. The fourth secret is unique to Ethiopia. The Kebra Nagast, glory of the kings, claims that the spiritual center of the world shifted from Jerusalem to Ethiopia 2,500 years ago. This text recounts that the Queen of Sheba, Makeda, bore a son to Solomon Menelik. When Menelik grew up and traveled to his father, the young Israelite nobles accompanying him back to Ethiopia secretly stole the Ark of the Covenant from the Holy of Holies, replacing it with a copy. Menelik was horrified, but God revealed to him in a vision that this theft was his will, for Israel had broken the covenant, and it was now being transferred to Ethiopia. Ethiopian tradition asserts that the Ark remains to this day in the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Aksum, and only one lifelong guardian monk is permitted to see it. While there is no historical proof for this, psychologically, the Kebra Nagast is a powerful myth of the transfer of sacred power. It is an archetypal pattern stating that divine favor can move when a people becomes unfaithful to its calling. The Ark symbolizes the self itself, the tremendous psychic energy that can either transform or annihilate depending on how it is approached. By guarding it from profanation, the Ethiopians have preserved a reverence for the dangerous and transformative power of the sacred, which the West has long lost. Secret 5. The expanded role of the Virgin Mary. In the Ethiopian Bible, the figure of the Virgin Mary is revealed with a fullness unseen in the West. Here, she is not merely the earthly mother of Jesus, but the second Eve, the mother of all redeemed humanity, the supreme intercessor, and the protector of Ethiopia. From a Jungian perspective, Mary represents the feminine aspect of the self, the anima in its highest, sacred form. Patriarchal religions, where God is exclusively male, create a psychological imbalance. Christianity, with its doctrine of the Incarnation, opened the possibility for a feminine principle in the divine through Mary. In Ethiopia, free from Western controversies, Marian devotion flourished without restraint. Mary here is identified with divine Sophia, the wisdom who participated in creation and salvation. She is the divine womb where the wounded soul can be reborn, the divine breast from which it can be nourished. This fullness of the feminine principle created space for greater participation of women in the life of the Church, including the ancient order of deaconesses. The West, fearful of creating a divine quaternity, kept the feminine principle strictly on the creature side of the divide, leading to a neurotic idealization and demonization of women in culture. Ethiopia preserved a vital psychological balance. Secret 6. Continuity with the temple cult. The sixth secret, shocking to a Western Christian, is the continuity with the Jewish temple cult. While the West saw Christ's sacrifice as the end of all sacrifices, the Ethiopian Church retained an understanding where ritual and material holiness remained central. Architecture. Every Ethiopian church is divided into three parts, like the Jerusalem temple, with the Holy of Holies, Kadesh to Kedusin, accessible only to priests. The Tablet. At the center of the Holy of Holies rests the Tablet, a consecrated slab representing the Ark of the Covenant. Without a Tablet, there is no church, no valid worship, no divine presence. This is a direct inheritance of the temple idea of localized holiness. Animal sacrifice. Ritual animal slaughter was practiced in Ethiopia until relatively recently. For Ethiopians, this is not an attempt to atone for sins, but an expression of gratitude and a rite that reinforces the bond between God and the community. Purity. Elaborate rules of ritual purity concerning food, menstruation, and childbirth are maintained. This is not legalism, but wise psychological structure, rites of passage that help individuals navigate important life changes. The modern West, having discarded these structures, faces an epidemic of mental health issues. The Ethiopian Church reminds us that religion is not only intellectual assent, but also physical, ritual participation in sacred mysteries. Secret 7. The Garima Gospels and the Transfiguration of the Image. The seventh and most mysterious secret is the Garima Gospels themselves, the world's oldest illuminated manuscripts, dated to 330 to 650 AD. According to legend, the monk Abba Garima copied them in a single day because God stopped the sun. These manuscripts are not just texts. They are visual theophanies. Their illustrations are icons, acting as portals into spiritual realities. From a Jungian viewpoint, archetypes speak the language of images, not concepts. By contemplating a sacred image with the right attitude, we make it transparent to the spiritual reality it represents. The portraits of the evangelists in the Garima Gospels are not realistic depictions, but archetypal icons revealing the spiritual nature of each. A mysterious image of the Temple of Solomon or the Fountain of Life, with an unusual ladder, is a mandala, the world axis where heaven meets earth. Christ is that very ladder, the mediator. The West, having passed through iconoclasm and the Reformation, lost this ability to see presence in an image. We turned art into illustration or decoration. Ethiopia preserved a living tradition where the sacred image is a necessity, not a luxury. The materiality of these manuscripts, their weight, smell, and tactility, teach us that the sacred requires boundaries, ritual, and reverence, incompatible with the profane access of the digital age. In psychology, there is a fundamental law: repressed psychic content does not disappear. It accumulates energy and returns, often in distorted and destructive forms. What the Western Church did to these 7 aspects of Christianity was a massive repression. The complex cosmology of Enoch, the sacred time of Jubilees, the visionary ascent of Isaiah, the feminine principle in Mary, the ritual practice of the temple, the power of the sacred image, all were declared too primitive, too Jewish, too dangerous. The result was a Christianity successful in missionary work and theology, but incapable of satisfying the deep needs of the human soul. And now, In the 21st century, we are witnessing the return of the repressed. People seek authentic spiritual experience in Eastern traditions, neo-paganism, psychology, and anything that promises a connection with mystery. But they do not need to invent a new spirituality or import it from elsewhere. They need to recover what was repressed from their own tradition. The Ethiopian Bible offers us a path back to a more complete, deeper, and psychologically whole Christianity. These 7 secrets are not mere historical curiosities. They are keys that can unlock doors in our understanding, help us heal the fragmentation plaguing both the Church and the Western psyche. The monks of Ethiopia guarded these texts not for themselves, but for all of humanity, for a future that was finally ready to receive them. That future has now arrived. The forbidden knowledge is being revealed. The light, hidden under a bushel, is being placed on a stand. It is up to us to find the courage to see it and follow where it leads, toward wholeness, individuation, and God.